So hi everybody, my name is Damien, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how you can build a full stack application with Laravel, Inertia.js, TailwindCSS and Vue.js that will look familiar like Trello. So for example, let me go to my account. So let's go here, and as you can see I'm redirected to boards page, and as you can see here I have some boards. I can create a new board. So for example I can type here my super board, and this is my second board. Now let's click create, and as you can see this board is created, and here I can add tasks that I want. So for example, do today, I can click do today, and for example today I want to record a new video. Okay, and I click create a task, and as you can see this task created successfully, and if I want I can move on this task to in progress. For example, I can change title, type enter, and as you can see now this task in progress, and this is also time when this task was created. And I can go back and go to my another board that I created here just for tests. I can change titles, I can change information about this task. So it will be like like a Trello, but more simpler, and I think this project will be really interesting for beginners in Laravel or Vue.js, and for everybody who wants to learn how to build a full stack applications with Laravel and Vue and Inertia.js. So let's begin. As you know, every tutorial begins with installation and new web creation. So first let me go to my documents folder, and let's go to my garage folder where I create every project for my new tutorial, and let's create a new Laravel application. So I will do this with composers. You can use Laravel CLI, but I prefer to use Composer for this operation. So my project will be named, for example, Trello tutorial. Why Trello? Because it will be a clone of the Trello, as you know, as I said. And let's wait until everything will be installed, and after that we will go to folder with our project, and we will install all dependencies that we need for this tutorial. First we will make server side for Inertia.js, and also after that client side for Inertia. Okay, so now let's go to the project folder, so Trello tutorial. Okay, and as you can see I already opened my Google Chrome and Inertia.js website. So here you can copy all commands, all codes that you need to set up Inertia.js in your application. So first you will need to install this composer dependency. So let's copy this, open terminal, and let's paste this, and now let's hit enter, and let's wait until this package will be installed. Okay. And here, as you can see, now I need to open my Visual Studio Code. So I will type code dot, and let me show you my Visual Studio Code, and we will set up root template for the application. So let me open my Visual Studio Code. Okay, so I'm here. Now let's go to the resources folder, and let's open welcomeplate.php. But we don't need to use this file anymore, so we can just rename this to app.blade.php. Okay, let me fix it. So app.blade.php. Let's remove all codes that we have here, and now let's open again our browser. Let's go to official Inertia documentation, and now let's copy this code that we have here, and let's paste this code here. Let's save it, and now I need to open here new terminal, and I will need to create a new Inertia.js middleware. So let's scroll down. As you can see, we will need to create an Inertia middleware by using this command. So type php artisan inertia middleware, and we will need to use this middleware if we want to use Inertia.js in our application. Okay, middleware successfully created, so that means that we can now go to the http kernel.php and go to middleware groups, and let's go here. And now from Inertia.js documentation we will need to copy this line of code and paste it here. Okay, save it, and we ended server-side setup. Now let's begin client-side setup. So let's move on. Let's scroll up and let's go to client-side. And as you can see, we have npm install Inertia.js command. So I mean npm command to install Inertia.js package for Vue. So let's paste this command here. And yeah, also I forget to say that we will need to install Vue.js plugin for Vue.js and Vue.js package. And that's all that we will need for, that's all dependencies that we will need for this clean site setup. So let's go to browser and I will install Vue.js Vite. So Vite plugin. Okay, so as you can see, I'm on an official NPM website. So let's copy this package and let's open Visual Studio Code again. Now let's type npm install Vue and name of this package, Vue.js plugin Vue. As I said, we will need to use this plugin if you want to use Vue.js with Inertia.js and Vue. So let's type npm install and now let's go to the vite-config.js. Let's import here, import Vue from Vue.js plugin Vue, and let's go to plugins array and let's call here Vue function. Let's save it, and that's all dependencies that we need for client side setup, but that's not all. Now we need to copy this code. So copy code from the initialize the Inertia app section, and we will need to open JS folder in the resources folder, and here in app.js paste this code and save it. Let's also delete bootstrap.js file because we don't need to use this file anymore. And as you can see here, we have one function that is named resolve. And as you can see, all components that we will create here will be stored in pages folder that will be created inside JS folder. So inside this folder, by default, in Inertia.js applications that, in Laravel applications that uses Inertia.js, all components are stored in pages folder that is inside JS folder. Okay, now let's open documentation again. We can scroll down, and as you can see, there is also instruction how you can use resolve function and how you can choose custom folder where you want to save your components. So that's all that we need for now. Now let's try to create a first component. So first let's type npm run dev. Let's see, okay, we didn't have any errors, so that means that we can now create our first component. So let's go to pages folder and let's type here hello.vue. In this tutorial, I'm going to use composition API. So let's type here hello inertia. And now, as I said, because I will use composition API, I will just type here script setup, and that's all that we need for now. Now let's start local server of the app, php server. So let's copy this address and let's open our browser. Now we can go to this address, and as you can see, we have welcome not found. Okay, so I forget to create a road for this component. So now let me show you how you can render your Inertia.js components if you don't know how to use Inertia. So let's type here inertia, and here we will need to type inertia render. And now we need to choose components that we want to render. And in our case, this is hello.vue. This is hello.vue component. So let's type here hello, save it. And as you can see, if we open browser, we can see now hello inertia. So we successfully created a new Laravel application with Inertia.js, and that means that we can now start development. But that's not all, because we will need also to install TailwindCSS that I will use to create a UI for our application. Okay, so if you want to install TailwindCSS in our Laravel project, we will need to go to the official documentation of the TailwindCSS. So we go here, install TailwindCSS with Laravel, and as you can see, first you will need to create a new Laravel project. We already did this, and we successfully installed Vue.js with Inertia.js. So we will need to type this command first. So this is command to install TailwindCSS and PostCSS. So let's open our code editor and let's make a new tab in our terminal. So click on plus, let me clear this, and now let's paste this command. I hit enter, and now let's wait until this will be installed, and after that we will need to enter another command for installation of Tailwind CSS, and next command will also create a Tailwind CSS config file, so we will be able to config or make our configuration of Tailwind CSS. So let's type now npx tailwind init and p flag. Okay, so let's type this command. And as you can see, as I said, tailwind config.js file successfully created. Okay, open again documentation, and now we will need to copy this code and open tailwind config.js So let's go here and let's pass this code. Okay, great. And as you can see, Tailwind CSS already supports Vue, and that's great. Now let's scroll down, and we will need to include these 3 lines in app.css. So let's go to resources, CSS folder, and let's type this. Let's save it. And now we will need also to include Tailwind CSS in our resources, but I think that we already including app.css. Let me check it. So let's go to app.blade.php, and as you can see, we only including here app.js file. So let's type here CSS folder and app.css. Okay, and now let's restart our npm run dev. And now let's go to localhost, and as you can see, font is changed, so that means that Tailwind CSS successfully installed. So great, we successfully installed everything that we need for this tutorial, and now we can start development of this application. Unfortunately, but when I was recording this video, I had some technical issues and some part of recording was not recorded, so you will now see a next video where I already have registration controller, so I will add a link below this video where you can copy all code for the registration controller, and so you will understand everything that you will see next. So just copy all this code in link down below and continue learning. Let's first create a new component in out folder that we created in pages folder, and let's name this login.vue, and let's copy all code from the registration.vue and let's paste here, and let's remove here this field name. Let's just leave email and password, and let's type here login, and let's rename button to sign in. Okay, sign in. Okay, and let's also remove name from use form, and let's change here post request to login route. Okay, and now let's go to out controller, and let's create here a new route named login, and let's type here return inertia render out login, and also let's create here a new function named, for example, authorize or something like this, and here we will define all logic of authorization in backend. Yeah, let's also close .ini file, and let's go here and let's create here a new route for login page. First, let's for get request, so out controller class and login, and let's add name for this route that will be login. Now let's create another request, but it will be now post request for login route, and let's type here out controller, and function responsible for this route, it will be authorize. Okay, and yep, that's all that we need. Now let's go to browser and let's check our results. So as you can see, authorize must be compatible. Okay, I understood. So that means that authorize function is already used somewhere in Laravel code. So that means that let's rename this. Maybe we can just type, for example, I don't know, out user or something like this. So I will use here out user. Let's save it and let's open browser again. As you can see, now we don't have any errors, so that means that now we can go to login, and as you can see, we now have login page. Great. Now let's make backend logic of this page. So first let's check again login. So as you can see, yeah, we make post request to login route that we created here. So that means that now we can create here request, and you know, here we can just use default request class. We don't need some request, create some custom request class. So let's use here just request class that we import from eliminate HTTP request, and let's type if create out attempt. Yeah, let's also import this class, this facade of out class. So let's type here attempt only email and password, and if our authorization was successful, we're going just to return, maybe redirect to, you know, maybe to home page. Okay, and now let's import this out class, I mean out facade. So let's do this. So let's type here eliminate support facades out. And yes, that's all. So if our authorization will be successful, we will be redirected to homepage. So now let's try to use Show.vue account that we created here. So let's copy email from database. Let's paste it and let's type here password of the Show.vue example.com. Now let's click on sign in, and as you can see, we successfully redirected to homepage. So that means that our authorization successfully works. So now if I, for example, go to web.php, and if I now try to get here out user ID, we can type here DDD. So let's make debug. As you can see, we have out user ID 1, so that means that we are now logged in as Show.vue account that we created here. Okay, so that's great. So we created logic for our authorization and registration, and that means that we can now configure redirects in our application and also show error messages for users. So maybe we can now fix this. So let's go to Visual Studio Code. So now let's create a model for our board. So let's open terminal and let's first type PHP artisan make model board, and I will add mf flag because I want to create a migration for this model and also factory. Okay, and now let's go to database folder and migrations, and to this create a boards table migration. And first let's add here, let's import user model, and here let's create a field for user. So we're going to create a relation between user and boards. So every user can have own boards where this user will have own tasks. So I will add here add for agent ID 4 field for user model. So let's type here user class, user ID. And soon we are going to create also relation inside user model and board model. And our boards will have two fields. So this is title and also text type field with description. Okay, now let's create a relation between these two models, between user and board, as I said. So every user can have own boards. So first let's import here models board. And let's create a new relation that will be named boards, and return this has many board class. Okay, so now we will be able to get boards of some current user that we will have in our application. And inside board model, let's import first user model, and let's create a relation author. So by using this relation, we will be able to get creator of this some board. And let's type here return this belongs to. And let's type here user class and user ID field that we created in this table. Oh, migration, I mean. So we successfully created two relations, and it's time for migrations. So first let me close this, but before we're gonna do some migrations, I want to go to board factory, and let's define that when we will try to create a new board by using board factory, we will create some fake data. So first let's type user ID, and when we will try to create a new board by using board factory, first we are going to create a new user for this board by using user factory, and after that we're going to set up fake data for title and description fields. So let's type here fake, and maybe we can just type here text 20 and description fake text, and yeah, that's all. And now let's go to database header, because here I want to import our board model and use board factory that we just configured. So let's type here board factory, and let's imagine that we want to create 10 boards, so it will also create 10 users for every board. For every user will have one board. And let's type here create, and yes, that's all. So now let's type here PHP artisan migrate fresh. So migrate fresh seed, and let's see. Okay, I need to type correct this flag. And as you can see, command was executed successfully. So that means that if we now open PHP-MyAdmin, and if I go to my database, you can see that we have 10 users and we have 10 boards, and every board belongs to some user. So it's great. And now it's time to start creating board controller. So let's open our terminal, and now let's type php artisan make controller board controller. Yeah, also we can specify a model for this controller. If I remember, we can create a request for every model and the controllers for some model in terminal. So let's type here model board. Yeah, as you can see, successfully created. So if we go to board controller, as you can see, this is resource, and let's begin. So also we will need to create here a request, but I forget to add here request flag in terminal. So let's delete this board controller and let's type here request again. And as you can see, a request successfully created. So we have now store board request, date board request, and yes, that's all that we need for now. And yeah, also in the request folder, I want to create a separate folder for board model. So let's type here board, and let's move on our requests to this folder. And now let's open store board request first, and let's change namespace. So it will be app/http request board. Now let's copy this, and let's open update board request, and let's also change here namespace, and also let's change namespace here. So we can just type app/http request board store request, and let's update also here. Okay, so first let's create a index function. So I will import Inertia class, and let's render components that will be named index, and this component will be inside another folder that we'll create here. So let's create here a board folder, and inside this board folder we'll have index.vue file, and this component will be responsible for index function in board controller. So let's define here inertia render, so board index. Okay, and if we, on this page, we will show boards of current users that is authorized. So if we want to pass some data in our inertia component, we will need to open here array, and let's type here boards. You can also use compact function if you want. So I'm gonna do this by this way. So boards, and I can just type out user and boards get. So I used relations that I created in board model, as you remember, or no, in board, not in board model, in user model that is named boards. And by using this relation, we can get boards of some user that is current of some users. Okay, so now let's go to index.vue. First, let's create here a new template, and yeah, let's also close me out controller and app.blade, and yeah, also let's go to web.php, and first let's create here a new road for this for our board controller. So let's type here board controller, and we will need to use here middleware, out middleware. So let's type out, and let's create here group. So this will be group of some roads only for users that are authorized on our website, and let's create a new resource road that will be named boards, and for this road we will type that boards controller is responsible for this road. Yeah, okay, now let's go to index.vue, and here we can type, for example, I don't know, just container mx auto, and let's type here testing boards. Let's also use here composition API, so I will type script setup. And if I want to get some data that I provide in our backend part, I can use props. So we can just type here, let's props, define props, and boards. This will be array. This will be array. So this is a way how you can get data that you provide by backend part. So for example, here I want to pass in index component index component boards of current user. So to get this data inside our component, I will create for this boards prop. Okay, so now we can open browser, and let's go to boards page. And yeah, also I need to log in, because as you remember, we did migrate fresh command. So let's go to users table, and here I can copy some email, for example, I don't know, Harton, or maybe let's crystal 00. and by default password is password. Let's sign in and let's go to boards page. As you can see, testing boards, but if I open my console and I'm in Vue plugin, as you can see, if I have here this index component that we created, and as you can see, we have prop that have one element in array, and this is board that was created by board factory, and as you can see, we have data that we get from backend part. Okay, so that means that now we can show boards of current user. But before we're gonna do this, I remember that in out controller looks like we forget to make redirect. Maybe, yeah, when we log in, because redirect to home page, so we will make redirect to boards page. Okay, so now let's create here some template that will show boards of current user. So to do this task, let's create here, for example, before loop inside div, and let's type that board in boards, and key it will be, so let's type bind key, and it will be port ID. And also we're going to create a separate component for every card. So I think that it's time to create a new folder inside board folder that will be named components, and we can type here components that will be named, for example, board card.vue. And inside this component, we are going to send data of single board. So let's first create here new props. So props, define props board, and it will be object. And we can also import this component here. So let's type here board card from that components board card view. And now let's pass this board card here, and we can type that we bind board. So now let's define value of the board props that we created here, so it will be equal to board. Okay, now we can type here test, for example, and also we can, for example, maybe use here we if statement if you want. But first let's open browser, and as you can see we have test, and let's also look in our template. So as you can see, board card is used here. So board, yeah, let's also refresh because I want to see that select component, because I don't see that we are using here, yeah, so plugin is not showing that we are using here some props. But yeah, let's first make template for board card component. So we can type here, I don't know, maybe div class border, and border gray, maybe better is much dark border, and padding 6. Now shadow MD, and let's type here name of the board. But first let's create here new heading. So heading that will be equal to text Excel, maybe font bold, and text, maybe text uppercase. So I will type here uppercase class, and board title. And I think that we will get error maybe because I don't use if statement, but as you can see, yeah, it's working. So maybe we can also move this before in our card component, and here we can use we if statement. So we can just type here we if boards, and inside we if boards we can type we full flex and gap, or maybe not, maybe spacing x, it will be spacing 4, space x4, yeah. And yeah, let's format this to this syntax. Okay, and inside board card let's define that width will be 1.3, and let's open browser again. And as you can see now, this looks much better, but I don't like this dark border, so I think it's time to change this to much lighter border color. So let's type here border gray, maybe like this, yeah. And let's also add here, for example, no, margin top 5 or maybe 10, and here maybe shadow SM, and we can also add rounded SM. And let's also show name, maybe no, not name, description of the board. So I will type here board description, and here let's type text SM, font light, and yeah, that's all that we need. So as you can see now, we have information about user card that we created. And let's add here buttons that will be, for example, that will be redirect us to this board. So we can also import here link component, but I will use this component in many components, so it's better to go first to app.js and import this component here. So link. And if you don't know what is link component, in short words, we can describe this like a dynamic link that give to us that if we use this component, we will be able to go to other pages, URLs without refreshing page. So to use this component, I will type here component link, yeah. So now we will be able to use this component in every component that we have in our application. So let's go here and let's use this component. So let's type here link, and let's type here view. Let's add some stylization to this button. So let's find px4, py2, bg green maybe, yeah, like this, and text white and rounded full. Okay, now let's open browser, and I see I don't like this, so maybe it's better to add some padding, maybe margin bottom 6. Let's check this again, and now it looks much better, but I don't like maybe py1 and px3. No. Okay, maybe just rounded this sm and change this to this, and let's type here via board, and let's also add here div with flex class. So flex justify and let's close this. Let's open it again. Okay, but I want to make this rounded full. So rounded full. And yeah, now this looks much better. So now it's time to create a show function. And with using show function in board controller, we're going to show all rows that we have, columns that we have in this table, in board, and that will be function to showing single board, where we're gonna also get tasks of the current board. And yeah, so that will be a workspace of some board and user. Where we're gonna start writing code for show function, I think it's better to create a header component for our application, because as you remember, when I showed you demo of this app, I had header in my application. So it's time to create a new component that will be in ShareIt folder. So we can just type here ShareIt, and inside this folder, let's create a new component that will be named header. And let's define template tag first, and after that let's add here script setup, and let's type here, for example, bg gray, and let's add some padding 4. Maybe you can also add flex, but I will do this in containers that I will create inside this header. So let's type here container mx auto flex justify between. And first it will be a logo. So for example, logo, yeah, it's better to type here just link. So logo will take us to homepage, and in logo we can, for example, type, I don't know, text Excel, font bold, and also uppercase, and let's name this Trello. And here we will create a avatar, so we can type bg red, I don't know, bg red, and let's define here width, so it will be width 6 and height 6, rounded full, flex justify, center, items center, and for example, I will make some emojis like avatars in my application. So let me paste it. So let's this angry smile, it will be our avatar. And yeah, also we can dynamically get user and show it on page, but I want to make in this tutorial header static. So now we can go to app.js, because I want to use this component in every component that I have in my application. So I will import header from /ShareIt and header.vue. And here I will define that this is global component. So I will type component function header equals header. And now let's go to index, and I can just type here header. Okay, and if I open my website, as you can see, application here, you can see that we have Trello, but I want to change here color, text color. So I will type here text white, and for example, text SM, and maybe that's all that we need. So if I open, yes, that looks much better, but I think that we need to make avatar much bigger. So width and height will be 8, and maybe text SM, yeah. So let's check it again. So as you can see, this is now center, item center. Yeah, so this looks not bad, but I see some margin bottom here, but yeah, maybe that's all. So now it's time to start working on show function, as I said, in board controller. So let's do this. Okay, so let's go to board controller and let's go to show function. And here we are going to return and render inertia component, view components that will create also in board folder, and that will be named Show.vue. And here we will just pass by props current boards that will get by ID in our URL. Okay, so let's create this component. So let's go to board folder and here let's type Show.vue. Let's create a template. Yeah, we can also get header and container. Let's close this, and now let's type here a script setup. And let's define props, so we can define props by this way. So let's define props board is object, and here we can type board title, for example. Okay, let's open this, and as you remember, I have here we have board button, so that means that I need to open my index.vue. Oh no, not index.vue, board card, and here we can define URL of the board that we want to preview, and it will be boards equal board ID. Okay, so let's open browser, and now let's click on this button, and as you can see now I am seeing here show title of the board that I get from Show.vue component. So that means that now we can show current component and also show all tasks of the component. But before we're gonna do this, first thing that I want to create is this is tasks controller and tasks model. So let's do this.